Ladies and gentlemen, we want to honor your time tonight. We're so grateful that you're here to learn about tree and forest management. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes, give you a chance to find your seats, and we'll get this information rolling.
It looks pretty accurate. It's maybe a tick fast. Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. It's so great to see all of you. As you know, last week we talked about debris removal. We'll give you an update on what's going on there. We have all things tree removal today. These are just the regulations and the folks that are doing the work. And more work to come after tonight on how we coordinate all of that. But I'm just so glad you're here. I hope we can get you what you want as we move forward as a community. There's a little yellow sticky note here for those who are speaking. That's where you stand so they can see on the camera. But I just wanted to say thank you for coming. And I'm just so glad you're here. And Sunny Weathers is city administrator will kind of be emceeing and getting us through this evening. And so I know there's handouts and folks in the back also. So check out those things before you leave tonight. And of course, contact us at the city if we can help you with anything after. So here we go. Here's Sunny.
Thanks, Mayor Cooper. Good evening, everyone here in attendance. And for those who are joining us online, we've got your feedback from last week, and we hope to have a better sound for you, as well as at the end, we'll have a YouTube link to share for tonight's video. So those who couldn't make it will have a chance to listen and see for themselves. Tonight, we're going to learn about tree survivability and salvage logging and regulations and assistance programs. We're grateful to have a host of stakeholders tonight from Department of Natural Resources and the Conservation District. They're happy to field your questions after they've given you their briefs. And for those of you online, please feel free to type your questions in the chat. We will document all of those down, and if they're not addressed by questions in the audience tonight, we'll put them in document form and post them on our website for your reference. For those who have questions that are here and in person, we'll have a microphone, and it's really important that we have you speak into the microphone so that those who are online and those in the audience can hear what your question is, and then the experts who respond to that will also be able to answer, so everyone knows both the questions and the answers. The panel is also going to remain available afterwards for your more specific questions, and if you're more comfortable asking them, they'll be available after tonight's meeting, and you can approach them to ask your specific questions for your specific needs. So we're planning to a little bit of information and resource update for you. We're planning to hold these community meetings weekly until there is no remaining need to do so. But I want to preface that with this idea. I want you to know that these meetings are meant to address general knowledge and provide you with contact information so that you can better address your unique and specific needs and circumstances with the experts that can provide those specific answers. Tonight's theme is tree and forest management. Next week's theme is construction and permitting. We're going to have both the city and county building and planning departments and Spokane Home Builders Association available to address process with you. We're also planning to organize a meeting on the subject of financing options and insurance claims so that we can help try to narrow the focus and get you in the right direction. I want to let you know that the Spokane County Sheriff chaplains are here tonight. Is Rob in the, here you are. You want to come up and say a quick word, Rob?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Chaplain Robert Canoon. For those online, thank you for joining us. For those who are here, thank you for coming together. I believe that in these trying times, this is part of the answer. Coming together, leaning on each other, being there for each other. Our faith, seeing a light at the end of the sheriff chaplaincy is here. I've got Chaplain Ryan Stankowski in the back there. He's part of your medical community. We also have Chaplain Gary Losey here. And so they're going to have some cards they're handing out. We want you to know that you are not alone. And I feel that as I think about and pray about what is going on. And with your leadership, I know that your leadership has your back. And so that's something that I was 30 years in the Army. It is beautiful and rare when you have that, and you do here. And Chaplain Ryan Stankowski is right here in your backyard. We want you to know you're not alone. We're here with you. And so as we think about this, I'll invite up Barb Wharton is here with me from the Red Cross. And I'm going to hand the mic to her. She talks to us a little bit about what we're going to be experiencing going through these challenging times. Barb?
Thanks, Rob. Having responded to lots of disasters around the country and having worked with first responders after traumatic events, we find that there's all sorts of different ways that people respond to traumatic events, to disasters. And you might be just fine and get through this just fine. Most folks do, but you might find that you're anxious. You are having difficulty making decisions, having difficulty sleeping, eating, all sorts of different changes in your life. And most of these are pretty normal, and you'll with your normal support system, you will get through those just fine, and you will get to the other end stronger and get through it with your family. But sometimes it gets scary. Suicide rates go up after any disaster. So we do need to watch out for ourselves and for each other. There's all sorts of resources. Frontier Behavioral Health. There's 988, which is a online health support system. Red Cross is still on the job, and we have health services and mental health and spiritual care that is ready to help. And you just need to give us a call. If you have your caseworker's number, call them. If you don't, call 1-800-RED-CROSS and tell them you're part of the Spokane Fire, and tell them, ask them. There's also one other resource there, and there's all sorts of other resources. Your church communities, your neighbors, there's all sorts of support. You are not alone. You do have resources. One other help is findhelp.org. FINDHELP.org. And you put in your zip code and you have some resources there. I'm going to hang around. Chaplains are going to hang around, answer your questions. If you have something that we can help with tonight, we're really happy to do that.
Thank you, Barb. So please raise your hand if you'd like one of our chaplains to come and bring you a card, and you can call them anytime through the night. They can hand you those cards. I see a couple hands. And so also I see Jerry's here from the DEM, but we're going to have this number. I'm just going to say it to you right now. For disaster assistance resources, text recovery to 99411. Text the word recovery to 99411. And I just want to say, as I think about the antidote to these trying times, the antidote is hope. The antidote of hope can be a difference maker in these times for our community. And we are a community going through this together. And so I just want to encourage you to hold on to hope. And if it's okay, I'll ask a prayer over us. Is that okay? If you're all willing, please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we pause, we bow before you. We pray now, Lord, as a medical aid community, and so many go through these difficult times, that you would encourage them through this, that you would lead us through this time. And Lord, that you would reveal yourself as Jehovah Jireh, Lord, the Lord who provides. And we need you now. And you say you have not because you ask not. We're asking, Lord, for your divine intervention. Walk this journey with us, and thank you for never leaving us or forsaking us. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Thank you, everybody. We'll be around for the duration of the night.
All right, that's a great resource. Please take advantage and reach out if you need help at all. It's, again, you're not alone. There's lots of help resources here. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Samaritan's Purse and Disaster Relief USA are still in the area to provide assistance with sifting and cleanup. So if that's something that you need assistance with, please reach out. The Medical Lake Library has continued to extend their hours. They're open 6 days per week, offering free Wi-Fi and computers and printing and copying. So please take advantage of that resource also. The Medical Lake School District Wellness Center, and I forgot to mention, thanks to the school district for the use of this space. I think you'll find it a little more comfortable than the bleachers next door at the gym. So, and it's air conditioned. So that's a couple upgrades. And we'll see if we can keep making this more comfortable as we go along. But the Medical Lake School District Wellness Center, which is across the street here on 317 North Broad, open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And they'll offer some assistance with social workers and coffee and snacks, comfy chairs, and Wi-Fi. And Second Harvest is still providing food boxes at the Lakes Harvest Foods parking lot on Thursdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Did you want to provide any updates?
I do not.
Okay.
Rob covered it
Yeah.
for me.
So we do have Spokane County Emergency Management as a wonderful partner that continues to serve with us and to help hear and meet your needs as we go through this devastating scenario. So we're grateful for their leadership and them being champions for our needs at this time. So I'm going to turn it over now to my friend Steve from DNR. Yeah, and he's going to lead you through the stakeholders tonight. We're going to teach you all things tree and forest management.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. Again, my name is Steve Harris. I'm with the Washington State Department of Natural Resources. I manage our forest resilience and regulation programs here in Northeast Washington, which Medical Lake area is in Northeast Washington. We have a great group tonight. I'm going to ask my speakers to keep it about 5 to 10 minutes and then leave about 5 minutes or so for question and answers after their presentations. And if we don't get to your questions, we will be here afterwards to answer any of those specific questions. With that, I do want to invite up Colin Happy. He's our new post-fire program manager. I just want to introduce him. DNR has never, up until this point, had much to offer post-fire for fire restoration. And we did pass some legislation, our legislature passed some legislation to support a post-fire program. And that's where Colin comes in. He came to us from New Mexico to help us build and establish a post-fire restoration program. We're in that process of building. We do ask that everybody be patient with us as we try to figure this out and provide the best service possible. So Colin.
Thanks so much, Steve, and thanks everybody here and online who's joined. I want to commend the city and the county for organizing these things. This is a very hard thing to do on short notice, and pulling all these people together and all these resources is really good and important. I also want to commend all of you for coming out today or joining online. And just reiterate, it can't be said enough what the chaplain said and what our partners from the Red Cross said. We have to take care of ourselves, and we have to take care of each other. Recovery is the marathon portion, and we're in the marathon now, and we need you here for years to come. And if you're not looking out for yourself, if you're not looking out for your neighbors and your family, we will not as a community be able to recover. So one of the things that we're looking at doing from the DNR's perspective is looking at the landscape portion of, the lives that we're in the places that we live, and how can we better jumpstart some of the recovery. There's no magic wand that grows 150 or 250-year-old trees that were lost. How do we make it easier on you to get some of this work done, to get some of this work started? How can we support some of that recovery? Again, jumpstarting the recovery. Nature is amazing and nature is resilient, and we'll see some of that. So patience will be key in this process and letting the natural world recover, and then finding ways that we can decrease our administrative burden and our administrative sort of hoops and all the things we have to jump through. That's my job. And then making sure that when the time is right and the resource need is there to control invasive species or weeds, to slow down erosion, to remove any kind of salvage logging or replant trees, you know, that's where Steve and I and Steve's team will work together to make sure that those resources are provided to the community to help us recover. So I'll be around tonight. I'm happy to take questions. I would love to hear from anyone who wants to talk to me about issues, especially things that have been frustrating with you. Yeah, go ahead.
So, you know, I came up with took all 5 houses out and DNR came and they knocked them down over 100 trees. And they just kind of like made a mess.
Hey, can you just give us 1 second and we'll get the mic to you and then you can ask the question to the whole group, please. Thank you.
First of all, thank you all for being here. I've worked in medical aid for 14 years. What I was saying was all 5 houses on my road were destroyed. Not one livable, not even, nothing, right? So DNR came in and they cut down like 100 trees in my area. And forgive me, but it's a mess out there. And so I was just wondering a time matter when this will take place. I know that all kind of like we're all different, right? So I'm just curious about the mess cleanup, and you touched on that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that.
So first of all, good question. You're not going to hurt my feelings. It's a mess out there. I get it. I have 1 question. Sorry, just keep the mic there. Was this part of the suppression action to fight the fire, or the question is, it's important to know why the trees were cut down.
Okay, so this is my story, and I was at work at Napa Auto in Cheney, Washington. And I went outside and seen a big puff of smoke, and this was probably around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. My boss said, "My dad's medical aid." And I go, "I know." He goes, "Well, maybe you should go home." And I said, "You know, my house is gonna be fine, whatever." I went home and I did not have much time to get out. But I waited until that fire got up 25 feet from my house before I left. And DNR came out, and there was probably, with no exaggeration, 20-25 guys jumped out of this truck with chainsaws and all that. And then once the fire got like 25 feet, and I'm trying to gather stuff away from my house, the main man that was the lead guy, I'm assuming, he came and said, "Sir, you gotta leave now." And so I did. And so I didn't get to see all the trees cut down because the sheriffs wouldn't let me in.
Yeah, so that it sounds to me, and we'll have to confirm it on the ground, but it sounds to me like that is directly related to a suppression action. Suppression damage repair is part of the suppression program. So let's talk to Steve afterwards and we can get some direct contact and information.
Thanks.
Cool. Yeah.
So we live on Brigade Road and like I was there right to the very end, like I waited till last point, like even on video, I was like, I think I waited too long, like get out of here kind of thing. And then like week and a half, 2 weeks after, like literally like some folks that were contracted to do this, I think it's just really clear cutted like trees.
We'll address that.
No, I don't, I mean, if you have an answer, we'll answer.
So-
We can
So
tag
we do have a guest,
team.
so we will, we have a guest from Avista here tonight. They'll address the Avista, the trees that Avista has fallen. So we'll get to that in the agenda. Good, excellent question. So we invited Avista here because we figured that question might come up. I do want to get into our agenda tonight, and we will have a time for a couple of questions after each speaker. And like I said, if we don't get to your questions, please see us afterwards. So with that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Make sure I get there. So one of the main questions we have from landowners when we go out and visit are my trees going to survive? So we're gonna have Bill Berrigan come up and talk to us about are my trees going to survive? Making sure I'm looking at, yeah, Bill Berrigan with Berrigan Forestry. Bill worked for the Department of Natural Resources for many years, and then he retired and started a consulting forester business and has been helping forest landowners for many years and in their forestry with their forestry needs. Has a lot of experience with post-fire damage. So Bill, I'll turn it over to you.
I gotta make a comment real quick about medical aid. I've done work down here, but not in the last 5 or 6 years. You got a whole lot of roundabouts in this area. All right. After 53 years of wildfire, well, about 4 or 5 years ago, my wife said, "You're not taking the pack test anymore." So now I go in after and get just as dirty looking at trees, but I don't have to fight the fire anymore. So I am very sorry about what happened up there at Elk area. Those folks have similar problems, similar wind. It's just really sad that so many homes are involved. After Firestorm 91, the Fire Chiefs Association and DNR started looking, and I don't know if they're gonna do it this year, but looking at some of the reasons why House A burned and House B didn't burn. And a lot of it is the vagaries of the fire. That's also true with what I'm about to talk about, which is covered in a whole lot of handouts. No, I'm not gonna read this stuff to you. They're all on the tables out back, out where you came in. So I will avoid that. I go by the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. I had to learn that way too by experience. So let's get into it. The fire went through and I drove around this afternoon, took a look at a lot of what you folks had to go through. But I did see patches of trees that were barely touched. And of course, we all know about the ones that are totally black, which gets right into a comment that I used last week that is common to the fire service. When I send a crew or even as an individual out on a fire, one of the things I remind them is this catchphrase: look up, look down, look around, which obviously is a safety concern when you're working on a fire. You don't want a tree falling on you or a snag, especially with the wind blowing the way it was. But it also works when you're identifying trees that have a problem. You're walking through your forest and first thing you do when you want to evaluate a tree, look up. If it's totally black or totally brown, and this is a month after the fire, almost a month, yeah, right, depending on when you burn. If there's no green up there, that's probably gone, not because there isn't any green, but also because the green buds at the end of the limbs were cooked too. So it doesn't matter the size of the tree, if there's no bud to grow next spring. And the way on small trees, the way you can do that is go up and pinch a tree bud at the end of the branch. If it's hard and dry, it's done. But again, if you're looking up and there's no needles and the tree is black, you're done with evaluating that tree. Move to the next tree that you want to look at. The other thing that I noticed was a very common problem, especially in landscape trees. If you did not clean up the pine needles that accumulate under those trees that you wanted to keep, you need to look down now that the fire's gone. Second step, look down, look around the base of the tree. If the roots are showing, because there was so much duff and pine needles under that tree, most likely that tree, even though it's still green up above, is gonna have a real tough time making it. Because the big roots are there, but that heat from that accumulation of pine needles under that tree or beauty bark, anything that keeps the heat there, cooks the little fine hairs, the root hairs. The big roots are still there. They're meant to hold the tree up. It's the little tiny fine hairs that got burned. So that's the second point. Look down. I saw some trees, there wasn't any duff underneath them. There also wasn't much soil for a ways. It was totally white ash where the fire had been in there so long. That tree is probably dead. It, even though it's green up above. And you can wait till spring if you want, but I've had poor luck waiting till spring when I've been out trying to help people. What's the third one? Look around. Walk around the base of the tree and look for two different things. The bark beetles are there's a variety of bark beetles. Some of them attack a tree from the top, some of them attack the tree from the bottom, and some of them are opportunistic. They'll just move in their wood borders. That's after the tree is pretty much gone. What are they after? They're after that cambium layer sap. And if you see those, and the way to look at it is the whole either has a little bit of pitch, but a whole lot of sort of reddish yellow brown type, what's called frass. It's beetle poop. They drill in and then start going around the cambium layer, eating and finding chambers to lay eggs. So maybe the tree isn't dead this year, but it will be next year because their eggs will turn into larvae and turn into beetles, do the same thing. So those two things are very important to look for. And it can start in the topper, but normally you'll see now, it's been a month, we've had some rain, and those beetles carry that blue stain fungus that makes the lumber real beautiful, but the mills really don't want that much of it. The other thing that when you're looking around is look at the cracks in the bark. I don't care if it's black or deep black, but look and see if you can see pitch oozing out between the cracks. What that means is the heat of the fire was so extreme that it actually boiled the cambium layer sap. And if it's on one side, maybe you're okay and the tree will grow, assuming it's already past the look up part. But if it's got those pitch seams, bubbling pitch out, it got cooked on that side or entirely around the tree. So you gotta, that's the look up, the look down, and the look around. And if you don't feel comfortable doing that, there's a lot of foresters, obviously, member of Consulting Foresters Association, and we have a website. County has a list of consulting foresters. The DNR has a list, WSU has a list, and University of Idaho has a list of foresters and other professionals, and some of them are loggers that can go out there and look at it. The other thing that I forgot to mention up at Elk last week was I mentioned arborists are a good source. What if you lost landscape trees and shrubs in your yard? Number one thing, you better check with your insurance company. Not only you may have lost your home, but those ornamentals, landscape trees, can be replaced if the insurance company carries that. 5 years ago, the Boyd's fire, which was up at Kettle Falls where I live, I helped a client And we were putting up a salvage timber sale, and she got a surprise of her life. The insurance company, and I don't remember which company it was, gave her $11,000 for landscape trees. And I'm going, how did that happen? A certified arborist made an appraisal of the replacement cost of that tree, shrub, whatever it was. And so don't give up on those. They can be part of your settlement if you have insurance. Unfortunately, that's a quick and simple, quick and dirty, how to do it. It's obviously gonna take a lot of time, but for those of us that have done this for a long time, I took a tour out to Four Lakes and around, and we all know that area that's all black, there's probably not a single tree up there that's gonna make it. And there are other people here tonight that are gonna talk about what to do about that. But, there are areas, especially coming down the highway, towards the highway, where it was more of a burnout, backfire, if you will. Those trees probably gonna do okay. Even though they're black on the bottom, they're green on top. I hopped out, I didn't see any evidence of bugs. I did see that some that got cooked, that the sap was in, but it was only in a portion of the tree. The rest of the tree will recover. That's why you see trees in the woods that have scars. It's not because of logging, probably because there was a fire that killed that little piece of the bark. Any questions?
I have one.
Hey, you gotta wait for the mic.
Well, Steve, thank you for your card.
You're welcome. It doesn't matter, I can't hear without the mic.
And neither can the folks.
I got 2 hearing aids right now.
Okay, maybe I should be a radio announcer, I don't know. So, question, is what I've noticed, not only on my property, but my neighbor's property and other of your folks' property, is that hot fire that was on Clear Lake. It got so hot that it burnt the roots. And I even have like 2 to 2.5 foot holes by the big pine trees. There's no way that they're gonna survive. And some of them are leaning. And I mean, I don't have a house anymore. But
Well, but burnt wood doesn't mean they're not gonna take the tree.
but what about the burnt roots? The burnt roots is what I'm talking
It
about.
depends how badly burned, how far up, how far around, and that's what salvage loggers can determine. Tree by tree might be just taking a chunk out, and the rest of it's still good. So don't assume anything. That's that look up, look down, look around, and you're looking around, but how far up did it go? That's a consideration.
The tops are black.
Oh, then-
Well, then move on to the next tree for evaluation.
Okay,
sorry.
well, yeah, I could show you videos of my house and, yeah, but it was hot. Anyway, thank you for your time, and I don't mean to be the one talking all the time, but I was just wondering about the roots.
We have a question down front.
Okay. Anybody else?
No, we got one down.
We got a couple back there, one more or so. We're in the back of the room there.
I have a question in regards to the certified. I don't know how to pronounce it. Arborist. Is there a list that we can get in touch with to call them?
I'm sorry, is there a what?
A list for the certified arborist.
There's a list, some of the arborists are on the University of Idaho and WSU lists. Not all of them, but they have a website too, so just look for, Google arborist, certified arborist, and it'll give you probably a couple of ones. There's a big organization in Michigan, which won't help us any, but, there's quite a few in town here. I had a contract with Spokane, City of Spokane several years ago, and the arborist was Jim Plott, Community Forestry. And Jim has a circle, there's a lot of folks in this area, but they're like us. I'm doing this for free. I'm not here, there's foresters a lot closer than Kettle Falls. So go to those folks. And the same thing with the local arborist organization. There are a lot of folks that are really good at this. And you wanna look and have them checked thoroughly before you start asking to cut. But again, to look up, look down, and look around, it's gonna make an easier decision for you. If that arborvitae is 12 feet tall and it's black, I'd say you're looking for replacement.
For one more question for Bill.
Got a bunch in the back.
I know, but we.
You guys hear me okay? May not even need a question, a couple questions, I guess, Tony up on his, that had some big bull pines that have lost a lot of stuff under them. Some roots were exposed, they're in a bit of a hole, I backfilled them. And actually added some compost. I don't want to spoil them, but I don't know if that's a good or a bad idea to backfill around those trees now.
He's backfilling around the pine trees and putting mulch over them.
Now, again, what's it look like? Backfilling with mulch on a dead tree is still mulch on a dead tree. So,
I was pretty sure
that's where you want somebody to look at it. If you don't feel comfortable, why spend the time? It'd be better to put the mulch in on a new seedling.
Well, somebody did look at them with a different angle from the DNR that looked at them.
If there's that much gone, there's probably root damage. That's the problem.
All right, we're gonna move on, Bill. Yeah, and I apologize, we do have I do want to honor everybody's time tonight and get folks out of here on time. Bill will be here afterwards. We'll try to get through and you can ask some questions of Bill afterwards. With that, we'll go ahead and introduce our next speaker. Next up, we have Randy Burke. He is a consulting forester, and he's going to talk to you about salvage logging, the ins and outs of salvage logging. Again, another 5 to 10 minutes with some questions, and he too will be here afterwards. So Randy also used to work for the Department of Natural Resources as a service forester in Spokane County, so he's quite familiar with this area. So over to you.
Thank you. So Randy Burke, my business is Lost in the Woods Forestry. To pony up on the arbor question, International Society of Arboriculture is a certification program for arborists. So a little bit about salvage logging. Again, the time, we touch on what Bill said for checking at the base of the tree. One simple tool that you can make to check the cambium layer without hacking a big chunk of bark off. Small metal pipe, sharpen the end and tap it in with an axe and you can get just a small sample of that cambium layer under the bark. But for salvage logging, one of the big things is time. Again, talking about beetles, when the beetles come in, they can introduce the blue stain fungus. There are some beetles already out. Bill alluded to multiple species. One is the red turpentine beetle. They're more of an indicator species that something's going on in the tree, so they're really common post-fire. They're out so far on every property I think I've been to, down on this fire and up north on the Oregon fire. So timing is important because you don't want blue stain pine, or the mills don't want it. It's on that note, don't expect everything to happen overnight because it does take time for the layout, for the approval of your permit, and finding loggers. There's not a lot of loggers around, especially ones that do smaller projects. Working with foresters and mills and loggers, again, there's not a lot of loggers around. There are consulting foresters around throughout the Spokane area. Bill, he mentioned he's up north. There are a number of us here around the Spokane area. If you are going to salvage, landowners can set everything up themselves. They don't have to hire a forester or a logger to do it. There are permits and paperwork to do. But if you do it yourself, you still need to talk to the mills because you can't just show up with a pickup truck full of logs. You're going to need a purchase agreement with the mill for them to pay you for the logs. And so that anybody can call. If you have a approved forest practice application, you need the number for that for your log purchase agreement to get that agreement with the mill. And then at that point, you'll know what price they're paying for the logs. Pine is not the most valuable species we have, and black pine is not as valuable as green pine. So smaller parcels can be more difficult to make it work financially.
It's where working with your neighbors, getting more smaller parcels kind of banded together will help. Than if you have 5 acres trying to do it yourself, it's gonna be tough. When it comes to which trees to cut, which to leave, there are leave tree requirements for the State Forest Practices Act. And leaving some dead ones, if they're not right next to a house or a road, isn't necessarily a bad thing in terms of wildlife habitat and snags. There are a lot of woodpeckers and other birds that utilize snags for nesting, and fire does make good snags, as a lot of you are aware. Working with the mills and loggers, replanting. If you harvest timber, you are going to be required to replant. There's 2 ways you can do that: planting seedlings or natural regeneration. If you have green trees that are going to make it, you can potentially opt for the natural regeneration route. And you just have to leave enough green trees kind of spread throughout the harvest area and you're using them as your seed source. If there are no green trees, natural regeneration plan probably is not going to work. So then you will need to consider the cost of replanting, and the DNR will be talking about some of that as well. The Conservation District is another place where you can get seedlings, and Ben and Garth can help you with that. And again, the smaller properties can be more difficult. It's where working with neighbors and getting more people on board will help. Are there any questions? Yeah.
Thank you. My question was that DNR came through and they cut several trees that were a threat to our house or whatever, but what they did do is they cut them and they landed them so that they went into Silver Lake. So, I mean, if one of us did that, the private citizen, we would be seriously fined. Right?
It's governance.
So I called and I asked about it, so then they came out and they kind of, well, yeah, and I said, now listen, Silver Lake, our property goes out to the middle of the lake. So that tree goes out into the lake, if somebody comes by with a boat or a jet ski and has problems, I am possibly, could be sued. And so the DNR people said, oh, no, that won't happen. I said, will you put that in writing? Well, no. So in other words, it's a hazard. It is a hazard, and I don't know if that's a really good stewardship of our water. Our water in the lake is it's brown, it's awful. It's full of debris, it's full of things. I just adding to that with the black sort of the bark, it's just not a healthy thing, I don't think. Then another tree that they marked as a hazard / kill tree. They marked it as a hazard tree to be cut. And then the Sawyers came through and they went, oh, I don't think we should climb that. So then they took off the ribbon. So when DNR came back by again, they said, no, this should be ribbon. So back it up, so I said, well, is somebody gonna cut this? Because once again, that's hanging over Silver Lake. So if a branch, because the guy said, that could be a hazard to one of our guys out there working. Well, it could be a hazard out to anybody walking with the dead branches, and if they call it a kill tree, and it wasn't moved. So suggestions or how to go further from this, but I don't think this is a good stewardship of our trees, of our natural resources with the water, and we need some help.
I don't have a great solution. The one in the lake, I would say, is gonna be tough to salvage potentially. Having waterfront brings up potentially difficult situations with the county and what they will allow within the shoreline area. That's one thing I'm not super familiar with yet. I'm going to be looking into that because I have a client and their property burned. But the killer tree, I mean, I can't answer that. Steve might be able to.
But that doesn't help. And where should we go for an answer to deal with this? And again, having the tree out of the lake is not safe.
Small claims court.
Yeah, there is a claims process, a tort claims process with the state of Washington, and if you see me afterwards, I can give you the link for the tort claim process, that's what, and that may be what you're looking at for that situation, is a tort claim on that, so I think that's probably the best answer. Any other salvage? We got a salvage question here. No, I'm sorry, we got a mic back there. Well, go ahead.
Thank you. So you said the mills, are the mills out here they're gonna come and cut down the trees and mill them? And for a fee, and how wide do the trees need to be? And how many trees will they come out to cut? Do they need 100 trees or 20 trees?
So the mill doesn't usually do it. It would be a logger and the trucker. And so the trees would be cut and shipped to a mill. The blessing out here is there's not any mills super close. I know, some folks are already harvesting and shipping, to the mill though. And so it's really dependent. There's not necessarily a black and white, you need 27 trees to make it work. It's kind of dependent on what you have and how burnt it is. If it burnt into the log, mills typically aren't gonna want those. And so it kind of, it's case by case basis.
So basically, you gotta have a logger to get to the mill. You can't just cut it down yourself and bring it to the mill.
Unless you have a log truck.
Well, fine.
We do have mill representation here tonight that'll address and answer some of the questions when their turn comes.
We will introduce, we have a gentleman from Boise Cascade, they'll have at the end, I give them a couple of minutes to talk to you about the mill, so.
Yeah, so I got a question about the logging thing here, I basically came through and cut down 200 trees, left them laying. If I cut them up to sell the stuff in firewood, is that logging? Do I have to reforest? Do I have to replant? Do I have to pay? It's my land, it's my trees. So there's somebody knocking down,
You
I'm
can,
just cutting them up.
so if you're cutting them up for firewood, it
Yep.
is less than one very large logging truckload of wood, you do not need a forest practice application.
Say it again.
If you have less than 5,000 board feet, which would be a very large logging truckload of wood, then you do not need a forest practice application for personal use.
Okay.
That will-
Who knows?
So we have an Avista rep that will answer some questions on that, so don't want to spoil his presentation there. So with that, I think we probably better keep moving. I apologize, folks. I do want to get you out of here on time. Thank you, Randy. Appreciate your efforts there. With that. I do apologize for not getting to all the questions. That's tough. But I also know that we want to get you home on time tonight. So with that, we're going to move into reforestation. So if you salvage log, as Randy mentioned, you may be, well, let me back up on salvage logging. That's the one thing that is time sensitive out here. Most everything else forestry related, you don't need to run out and take action right away. A lot of times you can wait and see. Salvage logging is very time sensitive, but these other things we're going to talk about the rest of the night, grass seeding, reforestation, we have time. That's the great thing. We have time to work on that. So we're going to talk about reforestation. Bill Anderson, retired DNR forester, also now a consulting forester. He has planted a lot of trees in his time. And if anybody knows how to get a tree growing, it's Phil. Now, that being said, this is very tough ground down here to get a tree established. So I'm going to turn over to Bill Anderson. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Steve. I had handouts at the back that had seedling sources and seed zones and others. If you got one, great. If you did not get one, but want one, Andy Perleyberg, if you send it to his email, contact with me and I will mail it to you. So then you can understand a little bit more about where you might get seedlings. Okay, the process we've been discussing here tonight is you want to salvage if you can. If you can't salvage, but you still want to reforest, you can. But you have to deal with the standing dead trees. You know, those trees are gonna stand there for a long time, for a while. And then they're gonna fall down. And if you planted trees underneath those things, they're gonna crush the seedlings you plant. And you don't wanna have that happen because you're gonna be spending money to reforest. So salvage, clean it up, and then plant. What species do you plant? Down here on this fire, there is only one species you need to think about planting, and that is ponderosa pine. But when you think about ponderosa pine, all ponderosa pine are not the same. There are seed zones, and in this specific seed zone, you'll see the number 830, or you'll see Spokane 10. That's what you want to focus on. And so those seedlings, because of where this is at, we don't grow them that often. And so if you looked at the list of seedlings that were available, you will not find Spokane 10 ponderosa pine. However, DNR is trying to address that, and they're talking about sowing a significant number of trees, and many of them will be pine that is adapted to the sites here around Medical Lake. And you want to focus on that. Just don't plant a pine tree to plant a pine tree, because all sorts of weird things can happen after that. One of the other things, there's lots of grass around here, and there's shrubs. And that grass and that shrub, even though it is burned, it will come back. And when it comes back, it will be an incredibly intense competitor for the water available on these sites. It's unfortunate, but this site is on the edge of being a forest. And 50 years from now may not be a forest because of climate change, but you want to plant trees specific for this area. Okay, so you've got the trees, you got the seed zone, you got all the stuff, and now you got to plant a tree. You have two choices. You can plant them yourself, or you can have a contractor plant them for you. There are contractors around who plant trees. Depending upon the number of trees that you have to plant, you may be able to deal directly with them, or you may want to deal with them through a consultant. And there are a number of consultants in this room that will assist you with that process. It didn't mention it, but there are DNR service foresters here, and they will help you. In fact, they're supposed to help you. And then they got WSU Cooperative Extension. Andy Perleyberg will help you. I will help you. I mean, you got all the help you could possibly, maybe not all the help you could possibly need, but there's lots of people that are here to help. And it's a complex process, and obviously, first of all, the seedlings, DNR is going to sow seedlings and provide them for you if you lost trees in the fire. Steve will discuss that some more, so you don't have to buy trees. And when we do that, then you will get the seedlings that are, if you buy them through the DNR, get them through the not buy them, but get them through the DNR, you will get stuff that's adapted to your site. If you go to other vendors, and there are other vendors, you may not get that. And I have a whole presentation on planting seedlings where they don't belong, and funny things start happening to them. And you'll start calling people, or the people you sell your property to will start calling, going, why is this tree doing this? Well, it's because it wasn't adapted. So anyway, we can go into this more. I'm around tonight. My contact information is on the sheet that some of you got, but not everybody got. You can get a hold of me, and we will certainly help you to reforest your property. Questions? My last name is Anderson.
Yes, my last name is Anderson.
Yours too?
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
You know, we were at one time, we were one of the top 10 last names in the United States, so we might be related. Patrick Anderson, I'm sending here with my son's daughter. Got to play, I won the ball game today. Not a real big deal, right? Like that. It's a good job. So a little background on me. I have been in 5 fires. I have fought fire with US Army twice. I fought fire down on the border that was started by a drug cartel. It covered about 50,000 acres, started on the south side and went into the United States, more than 50,000, it's huge. I bring this up because I was a property, I own a property management company over on the west side of the state, and there is a little caveat to what has been talked about right now. You do not have to necessarily replant all your trees. That is not fully true. Under Washington law, there is a regulation that says that you can restore your land to original use. I dealt with this because as a property management, property renovation company, I had to go in and clear land and return it to its original use. We are on South Medical Lake Road. We lost our house, lost our barn, most of our buildings. I also have some DNR and Forest Service, these are the questions, but we won't get into those now. When it comes to replanting trees, if you want to restore your land to original use, you can. Our land 100 years ago was a cattle range. 50 years ago, it was a dairy. 30 years ago, it was still being used as a cattle range. Only in the last 30 years were those trees on our property allowed to grow. If I want to, I can go in and restore that land to original use. So depending on how your land and your property was being used, there is a little bit of waiver room in whether or not you let trees grow or put them back. I've had to deal with court issues on that before, so just to let you know, there is some waiver room.
Okay, the only thing I know is that if you harvest trees, salvage, logging, so on, and you reduce the stocking to below, so it's not stocked, you are obligated because you remove the trees to harvest. Now, if you didn't harvest your land and you have done nothing, and the trees are all burned up, you do not need to do anything if you do not want to. But the forest practice guys will talk to you about that. But if you harvest, you may create an obligation for yourself. Any other questions?
Why are we obligated to have to pay to put new trees in or whatever, when it was none of our fault to do that, and now we're obligated?
No. Well,
Like you just said,
if you harvest, you're obligated.
like I get rid of the trees one way or another.
Well,
remove dead trees.
If you make money doing it, the idea is that you've made money, so you should have money to put back in. But I'll let somebody else deal with that. But if you want to reforest, you should reforest, and there's ways to do it, and so on. And in fact, that's a good steward of the land will reforest.
I got a question.
I've got an answer. Go ahead.
We talked about the black pine. What about the alders, the hardwoods that are pretty much turned into right?
So that's a really good question when talking about the hardwoods.
Okay, hardwoods are not covered under reforestation, so if you want to reforest, you can with an appropriate hardwood. What is that? One that you find is cottonwood, aspen maybe. There are other shrub type hardwoods that you can plant, and you can certainly do that.
What I'm asking is, how do you tell whether they're gonna die?
So the great thing about like your aspen, they like fire. Because they like disturbance and they're gonna come back, they're gonna sprout back, more than likely, the one thing that when they do sprout back, you're gonna wanna keep the animals from grazing those shoots when they come up. So you wanna exclude the grazing animals in there, but hardwoods like disturbance, so that's a really good bring it up, Bill.
Okay, so I got one question. So hardwoods, one of the things you're gonna find, we had you guys have an inch of rain down here about 2 weeks ago. And we got the rest of the fall, and we should get a fair amount of precipitation between now and when it snows. So what you will find is that the hardwoods and the brush and the grass are all adapted to fire regimes in this part of the country. And so you're going to start seeing specifically the brush and the hardwoods, the cottonwood and the aspen, they will start to regenerate. And you're gonna see that happen this fall. And if you don't see it happen this fall, you certainly notice it next fall, or next summer, or next spring. So I got one to see here. You're talking about the salvage lumbering? What about the small stuff?
The what? The small diameter?
The smaller trees, so I do a lot of work with DNR, on the cost share program, where we go in and we repair.
Well, there you are.
Steve, I hate to interrupt, but we're missing one point that this gentleman didn't mention. If you are under a county designated forest tax plan and you do not reforest, it doesn't matter whether you log or you don't. Spokane or any of the counties, I'm not sure about Lincoln, but I know Spokane County is gonna be after you and raise your taxes.
That's a
You
good
got
point.
3 to
Yes.
5 years with DNR, you have 3 years by law from the Department of Revenue and Spokane County to show that you are reforesting the area that you're getting a lower tax rate on. If you do not do that, you're gonna get a letter.
So I'm gonna repeat what Bill said.
Something else to think about.
So since the folks online couldn't hear that, just so everybody else can have a chance. And he brings up a good point. If you have your land in designated forest land by the county, then you could be, and you don't reforest, then you could be looking at some back taxes. So very important that you reforest, especially if you're under, if your land is designated forest land by the county. Good point, Bill. With that, I'm gonna,
That's it.
turn it over and keep us moving. I hate to do that. Oh, on the small diameter stuff?
Yeah, so you go in salvage log, right? Some of these properties that I've seen have small, 10-inch, 8-inch, trees that have been wiped out. I do a lot of work with DNR and the cost share program. Would they be a candidate for the DNR to go in there with a cost share and have a company like mine go in there and navigate everything?
Maybe. It's gonna depend, our money that we have for cost share, and what he's talking about, DNR, we do have a cost share program for reducing fire hazard. And improving forest health. And so if it meets that criteria, maybe we could cost share. So it's gonna be a case by case. I have to talk to your service forester about that opportunity. A lot of times the fire hazard's been removed, unfortunately, Mother Nature's removed it, or the fire removed the fire hazard. So it's gonna be a case by case. More than likely, it will not qualify for regular DNR cost share. Good point. With that, we'd like to turn it over to our forest practice foresters. And talk a little bit more about the forest practice regulations. We have Bernie Jones, who is a longtime DNR forester and works with forest practices. He's also our road specialist, so he knows how to help landowners with their roads. And we're going to talk about regulations, and then also Todd Olson's going to talk about the assistance that we can provide through that process. You're not on your own when it comes to forest practices. We can help you. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bernie Jones. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I hope you had a chance to look through all the handouts out there in the foyer. There's plenty there. There is one thing there when as relates to forest practices that I hope you all get a copy of. It's called Forest Practices Illustrated. It's a book that's Holly is holding up right here.
We'll have a few on the table, but they're available online and stuff.
And I brought about 125 of them, so hopefully that's enough for everybody. If it isn't, like she said, online, or you can contact DNR and we can send a book to you. If you have 2 acres or less, that's the size of your property, you don't need to get a forest practice application to do salvage logging. Okay? You can go ahead and take care of that because the DNR considers that 2 acres or less to already be converted. So it's a home site and you get to do what you need to with it. You don't need to get a permit from us. It's only when you go to do salvage logging on something larger than that. And the Forest Practice Illustrated book will tell you so much more than what I can do in this few minutes right here. When you get that forest practice application filled out, you can actually get them online and print the map, and then you can draw on the map all the things you need to. If for some reason that's not working for you, you can call our office up in Colville and they will mail you exactly what it is you need. Our office coordinator, Annette Painovich, is over here and she would be happy to help each and every one of you make sure you get the permit that you need if you truly need it. What we don't want to do is tell folks that y'all gotta have a permit. Well, you may not. If all you have is the 2 acres, then you're fine. You don't need it from us. There may be some things that Spokane County might tell you otherwise. But you wouldn't need the permit from us. When you do get one turned in, we try to turn those things around real fast. Some of them are a class 2 application, which means there's little to no chance of any 5-day turnaround. If it's a class 3 activity, meaning which there is a chance for some environmental damage, and we have to come out and review it out on the ground. And we try to get those done for fire salvage within about a week or so. And your forest practices forester that will do that for you is DJ Green over here. And right now, DJ is dealing with roughly 20,000 acres worth of fire salvage because the Oregon Road fire is actually in his work unit also. So we've got a team of about 4 of us right now that are going all around both fires, trying to help people, trying to get all these forest practice applications approved as quickly as we can because time is of the essence. We don't want to see your wood get ruined by blue stain fungus from the beetles. If it does, then you're going to end up getting docked at the mill. And then they turn around in a lot of cases and mill that stuff up for some nice wood paneling for people in California or something probably. So just keep that in mind that you want to move as quick as you can if you're going to do any salvage work. What I want to make sure you understand is that it is your choice. I think you've heard that from just about everybody here. If you, like I said, though, if you do own more than 2 acres and your wood's all killed, then you do need to get a permit. And so, like I said, the way to do that is go online on the DNR website and you can find it in there, or just call our office up in Colville. The number is in the Forest Practice Illustrated book, and so is the website as well. If you end up having questions, Todd Olson's shop and our service forestry can also help you get your application filled out. And it can be a little overwhelming for some folks because there's a lot of pages to it. And there's a lot of lingo that most of you may not understand, but it's what you got to do if you're going to do the salvage work, okay, on anything greater than 2 acres.
So have Todd come up.
Yeah, so we'll have Todd Olson come up. Todd is our Regulation Assistance Program Manager. Yellow.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Todd Olson. I'm the Regulation Assistance Program Manager. Thanks a lot, Bernie. And just let you know, Bernie and the staff that Steve has are extremely helpful. So they're a great resource. I work in the Small Forest Landowner's Office. You've had a second to probably take a look at that. There's a lot of different programs that are solely created to help small forest landowners. Like I say, I work in regulation assistance, and we help with all kinds of forest practice application questions, any issues that come up or are related to concerns you have about forest practices, rules, and regulations. Some of the things that we can help with in regulation assistance, and I'll get into a little more detail on that, but not too much, is we have, the rules can be pretty complex. The rule book is pretty thick. So what we do is we work in coordination with the landowners. Sometimes we can help get people to the right loggers. We work in coordination with consulting foresters as well. So that's a good thing. And then other agencies and other organizations, we also coordinate with everybody in that regard too. There we go. So we can help out with a lot of things like salvage logging, long-term apps. Just I don't need to go over them. I know we're kind of short on time, so I'll leave some phone numbers up at the end. You guys can get a hold of me. I do appreciate you being here tonight. I think we're stuck. Yeah, there we go. Thanks. Some of the things that we can help with with applications and rules and regulations includes forest health situations, salvage logging, some of the alternate plans can also allow the landowners to work inside of buffers where you might not normally be able to work, get a little closer to the streams and wetlands, depending on the situation. As long as it was the standard rule, which is an alternate plan has to provide at least equal protection as the standard rule. So our folks can help with that. We have 5 regulation assistance foresters that work throughout the state. I'm here for Noah Niket tonight. He works in Northeast Washington, but he covers all the east side of the state. And if he can't make it out or talk to you right away, I can. I left my cards out there. There's some brochures with our phone numbers on it. So I can get out here. One of our other foresters can. And then up on the screen, you can see the information for our fish and wildlife biologist. We also have the biologist. So I don't know if anybody has any streams or wetlands on their property, and you're wondering about typing and things like that, they can help you with that. If you have any questions about buffers and things like that. And it just goes over a little bit of the screen, just goes over a little bit of the differences between forest practices and what we do. We could do on-site visits and help you out, do pre-application reviews if you are going to be submitting an application to harvest timber. Go to the next one. Okay. And there's phone numbers, like I said, there's a brochure out there that has those phone numbers. So if anybody is planning on putting in an application to harvest timber, we can certainly help. And like I say, we coordinate with people as much as possible. But Noah is the contact for Eastern Washington. If you guys are interested to write down that phone number, that would help. And email as well. That's it. Who's our next speaker?
Just one clarification there between the regulation assistance folks, they are non-regulatory, so they aren't gonna write you a ticket when they come out there. And nor are our folks generally our forest practice foresters. That's usually the last resort. We want to help you be successful with your forest practice application. So we do have a question about forest practice application in the back. Do we have a mic? So is there a question about forest practice application?
Yes.
Okay.
These are burning and I can handle it, so.
Here, I'll let you guys
Okay, we'll
fight over it.
My question is, for those of us that have more than 2 acres, is there a way that somebody, they can allow like a collective, like several neighbors can go together and have, join that together to do one permit, one fee, something to help us alleviate the cost of all this? They could do a collective, like I said, this is my neighbor, this is my neighbor, the 3 of us get together, because the loggers are interested in large groups of land. So if there's a lot of acres, they're more likely to come in and work with us, but we need a collective rather than I have to pay a fee, they have to pay a fee, they have to pay a fee. So is there something that we could do with that?
In a limited way. I've been told that what we used to do in the past, we can't do anymore. It used to be that if we had several landowners that were neighboring, that they could all get together and get one permit with everybody's name on it. But these days, for whatever reason, they're not allowing that unless you are relatives. Hold it up close. If I get much closer, I'll need it. They can't hear you.
If they help us out.
Again.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, can you repeat the question? Because I'm not sure we all quite understood that up here.
The question is, if they can combine together and get one permit versus having each individual homeowner permit their area.
And like I said, we used to be able to do that, but we're not allowed to do that any longer.
So no, the observation was, is the state doing anything to help alleviate these problems by expediting this process? Instead of saying, no, you can't do it, we're not experienced with wildfire either. A wildfire has affected us tremendously. What help has the state done to say, listen, here's the deal, we know this happened to you, so we're gonna expedite things for you. If we can put 3, 4 of you together to do this, then let's do that, instead of, no, we got a regulation here that says you can't. Well, good,
I'll let you have that one. That's at your level.
Yeah. So I'm hearing you folks, and as much as we want to have one application for a whole bunch of owners, if one landlord goes in and makes a big mess of it and gets in a violation situation, what do? We've got all these landowners signed off on that forest practice applications. So we've been directed to, it's one permit per landowner, as it's been mentioned. So I apologize, that's the rules that we have to work in. We don't make the rules. With that, I think, are there any other forest practice questions out there that we have? We got time for one more question on forest practices.
I have a question real quick.
Oh, he's.
Wait just a minute.
So does that pertain to, I believe what she might be speaking of is neighborhoods. You know, the entire Freeman Drive Street, that is in and took down hundreds of trees and there are logs everywhere. Does that pertain to, geez, I think maybe asking if this neighborhood can get one permit.
So back to Bernie's point on the 2 acres, and you're probably under 2 acres, so then you would need the forest practice permit for under 2 acres. Hopefully that answers your question. Got one question over here, then we'll have to move on.
Actually, my question on this, what she just said, if this became a law, it has got all these streets, now, it would make sense to me that this would be responsible for cleaning up these streets.
Well, that's a great segue for our next presenter. Thank you for that. All right, our next presenter is because we have heard that Avista's been out here proactively working their right of ways. We've asked Avista Representative Ben Kaplan. He's going to talk to you about the plans of Avista, and they want to work with you as landowners. I can tell you that right up front. I've had a good conversation with Ben here, and they want to be partners in helping you be successful.
Thank you so much, Steve, and thanks to the DNR for this opportunity to address the community and to just kind of explain some of our the reason for our presence and our practices with respect to the trees that were damaged in the fire. You know, it's important to recognize that Avista we're committed to providing safe and reliable service for our customers in the area. And as part of that commitment, we have to manage dead trees and trees that are structurally compromised by the fire. We've had a significant presence in the community, in the fire impact area during restoration. So when we were putting the facilities back up to restore energy, and then ongoing to manage those trees. It's been addressed. We've had to remove a significant number of trees, but there have been trees that have been cut by, other parties that are working in the area. So, whether that's firefighting personnel, volunteers, but again, this is not the only party operating in the area cutting trees. The thing to know is that when we mounted our response, the trees that we cut, we had certified arborists come into the area and do the assessment prior to any cutting. And we've been in the area monitoring our response to ensure that we're aligned with the information that Bill was giving at the beginning of the presentation regarding the types of trees that we are identifying for removal. So, we use the same criteria, meaning those trees that are so damaged that they're not going to live. Trees, that means that the roots are damaged, the stems are damaged, the buttress is damaged. The other thing that we're looking for are trees that have now been exposed and have significant defects. Once we've restored the lines, we're looking for trees that are going to pose a threat to the facilities with future weather events. Almost all, or really all of our risk tree, and we call these trees risk trees, all of our risk tree response is completed in the area at this point. So you won't see a Vista Tree crews out here in forest cutting trees any longer. We do anticipate that we will identify other trees over the coming months. Bill spoke to bark beetles. There'll be trees that become evident and we'll need to come and address those trees. We do want to recognize though, and there's just been a lot of lead up to this, that the trees are the property of the individual landowners. And we certainly respect that. There's been a lot of solutions that have been offered here tonight. It sounds like, there are many different ideas as to how folks are going to deal with those trees that they own. But, due to the significant number of trees that we had to manage, this has been assessing, and we've developed a plan to assist customers where we have removed trees with the removal and the disposal of those trees. We intend to send a letter to those customers, allowing them to essentially authorize the removal of that and disposal of that debris. We need you to respond and let us know that you want us to remove the debris in order for us to do so. And if you're an Avista customer and you have questions regarding the work that we've done on your property or adjacent to our power lines, please contact Vegetation Management at 1-800-227-9187. Thank you. I'll slow down. Yeah. 1-800-227-9187. And as far as timelines go, we have to gauge how many folks need assistance. It'll help us understand how we're going to address the operation. But we're looking to get started and hopefully have this completed sometime late this fall.
Got a question? Got some questions? We have definitely have time for some questions. Yeah. On the back. Wait for the mic, please.
So your power pole fell on my driveway and you had a contractor come out on Saturday the 2nd and dig out my gravel driveway to remove the pollutants. Your contractor made a U-turn across my septic tanks, destroying all the lids. And the truck had to fall in. I don't know how he got out of there. And then he backed up and made a U-turn on top of my drain field. And I need to talk to somebody about this because there's a little bit more than trees on my property.
No, I understand your concerns, and I would, I'll stay after the meeting for individual circumstances such as yours. I'm happy to help you tie in with Avista claims, and that would be the appropriate avenue to address that concern.
Time for, let's a couple more questions.
My place was the only place that burned around my area. The power poles burned, so you guys went in there and replaced the power poles for the houses that were still standing. You didn't put one down for me. I have to order a power pole to get electricity on my property. And now they're gonna charge me $5,000 for just one pole. Why?
Forgive me, and I know that this is gonna sound like a pat answer, but I'm here to address questions regarding forestry and our practices with respect to forestry. With regard to the expense of service pole replacement and those practices, it would be better spoken to by another party. And I'm happy to help you get in contact with whoever that is.
All right, what about the trees that burned on my property? How come no one came out and looked at those and got rid of them? They're black.
So remember, it's very important to remember that we're only assessing trees that are at risk to our overhead electrical facilities.
All right, should we move on?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. I think that was very helpful. Hopefully we answered your questions on the Vista, the trees that Vista have taken down. Again, Ben will be here afterwards. Thank you again, Ben. With that, we're gonna move into a little different topic. We talked about trees, mostly trees up to this point, but there's some other assistance available for you from DNR and others, and something else to think about, and that's noxious weeds. So we have Dave Blunt from the Spokane Weed Board. He also has handouts out there. Unfortunately, fire creates a nice seed bed for weeds. I'm gonna hand it over to Dave. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Steve. Unfortunately, there is one thing that had probably a 99% or 100% survival rate. And that is weeds and probably noxious weeds. If you had noxious weeds on your property or other weeds, you're gonna have them again and probably worse. Some of the top seeds probably got burned, but you're gonna have them come back. What I like to tell people is, I guess what I really want you to take away. Oh, sorry.
Just hold it
Right
really
there.
close to your mouth.
Yes, we are a regulatory agency. That being said, we really want to work with all the landowners that have weeds. And we know it's going to take anywhere from 3 years, 5 years, 10 years to be able to get a real good handle on the weeds that come back. First thing you're going to see growing out there is weeds. Weeds and grass. You're going to see that come back. And the key thing, what we want to see happen is if you can plant something out there, even this fall, before it rains or even after it rains, even as the snow takes the grass seed into the soil, that is really what we want to get, something out there growing that will compete with the weeds. If you have areas on your property that did not have weeds, focus on that first. You know, next spring, when the time comes, look out there and work on those areas. Start small. I mean, if you got 50, 100 acres, we understand that it's not feasible. It's not economically feasible for you to control the weeds. I'm going to talk just briefly about like 4 different weeds that you're going to see come up out there. The main one that you're going to see is probably knapweed in this area. Skeleton weed is another one. Canada thistle and common bug loss are the other weeds that you're going to see come. The first plant you probably will see out there is a grass, and they could be invasive grasses. Of course, everybody's familiar with cheatgrass. You see that coming first. Other grasses to watch out for are called Medusa head and Metnata. Those are 2 other invasive grasses that you want to be aware of that's out there. One thing we want to make sure that you are, don't worry about the weeds this fall. Come next spring, give our office a call. We'll have technicians. I have one technician, Kathy, here somewhere, that's here to answer your questions after the meeting too. But get a hold of us. We'll come do an on-site evaluation. It's free, and give you our best effort as to what would be best for your property. And I just want to know, or just want you to know that we're there to help in any way we can. So 509-477-5777. 509-477-5777. All right, any other questions? David Munt, M-U-N-D-T.
Thank you.
Most of you live out of town. I have 3 acres in town and all my trees are pretty much gone. You're looking at about $1,200 a tree to have them cut down. I've had 6 arborists come out. I've probably got 100 trees. I'm right now about $20,000. Is the city going to help with anything?
As far as the city of, I guess I'd have to refer to the city themselves to see if they're gonna have any assistance available.
And once they come and cut your trees down, they will cut them either in log style or cut them into chunks for wood for your fire, but they will not take them away. No lumber company is taking them because they're burnt. There's a couple of companies here in town that will help you remove them. I think Dirtworks is one of them. He came to my house and did some volunteer work. But it's awful, and I know it's awful for all of you, and luckily my house stands, but everything around it's gone.
I guess one point I would want to make with the coming in log the property is to have a conversation with them about disturbance. Disturbance is going to create more weeds. So do have that conversation with them when you're talking to them.
I have a question related to the noxious weeds. Somebody from the county showed up at my property a few years ago, and then was told that I needed to somehow get rid of them, which I did. But what I guess the first burn in my saddle is when the county has a whole lot of noxious weeds next to mine, and they just don't seem to go anywhere after I get rid of mine.
I share your frustration. We notify you as a private landowner. I'm sure many people in here have received a letter from our office. We notify the county, the state, railroads, the same way we do you. Unfortunately, the way the law is written, and this is not my doing, but it gives us a great deal of as a private landowner. I don't think this is right. We don't have that authority over a government agency. We do work with all the government agencies. We can do regulatory action against the government agency. However, in the end, we can get our money back from you as a private landowner if we do enforcement actions. But if we do it against a government agency, that what we can get back from them maybe is a thank you. So that being said, we do work well though with DNR, many of the agencies, but I do share your frustration because many of our weeds, the problems we have came from the city, county, state railroads.
All right, thank you, Dave. Dave will be around afterwards. And also and I'm just going to jump the gun a little bit on DNR assistance. We now have grass seed. Well, I think we just ran out, right, Jamie? But we've got another big order, a large order for some more grass seed. So one of the best things you can do in those areas where there's disturbance, especially the fire lines, areas that have been disturbed or logged, and you're not planning to plant baby trees, like Phil said, you don't want that grass competing with your baby trees. But if you have that disturbance and you're concerned about weeds, you can talk to our service forester afterwards. We can get you signed up to get you some seed mix that you can lay down there that'll give some competition. And that's the best thing, one of the best things you can do to help prevent the weeds getting established is getting some native plants established in place. So with that.
This lady down here, she's had her hand up for a long time.
Okay.
Oh, just really quick, is there a chance that maybe the conservation district could provide little seedlings of the native shrubs and?
So the question is, can the conservation district provide native seedlings and shrubs? Garth, you want to take that?
Sure, we don't have any plans to do it currently. We have our tree sale annually that we Board of Maine order.
Hey, yeah, here we go. Speak and use the mic, Garth. Sorry.
So we don't have any plans to do that currently. We have our orders for next spring, but there's a possibility, but we don't have any plans to do it currently.
Thank you, Garth. All right, with that, we're gonna keep rolling here. I want to get you out of here on time. So we'll move it to Forest Health, Andy Burleyberg with the W2 Extension. It's going to talk briefly about forest health issues and what to be watching for. Some of that's been covered already. So Andy will go quickly and then we'll have time for a couple questions on forest health.
Are you gonna have the wildfire come up here?
Yeah. On the other side.
And all the programs you're also gonna
Yeah.
follow me?
Like
Okay, so I don't need to talk about that.
Correct.
But I am gonna talk about one thing, about the programs. So I'm gonna run out of time real fast and nobody could keep their hands off my topic. Everybody talked about some of the things that I was going to talk about. So I'll blow through some of the slides. It's only more embarrassing that I have the wrong first slide up here, or the wrong location. Because we had this program last week, but then what's even worse is that it's been up there all night long.
Sorry, Andy.
Yeah, you could have done something about that. So, no, but what I really am sorry about is, you guys have been through hell, and I am very, very sorry about that. And Steve and I have been doing these workshops for 20-some years together, and this is not the one we look forward to, but it happens every single year, someplace in our state. So what I'm gonna point out here are some things that you've heard discussed. I'm gonna show some pictures. And, but what I really want to encourage you to do is contact one of these service programs. The DNR is especially well set up to go out and meet with you one-on-one at your homes and help answer the forestry questions. And if you need the forest practice ones, so the ones that are gonna require permits. So there's kind of two sides of the DNR. One will come out and just do general forestry. Is my tree going to survive? Can I expect bark beetles to get into my trees? Looking around my neighborhood, or my neighbors, are they a risk to me? Am I a risk to them? They can help you assess all of those things. So there's a lot of information that we've gone through tonight. And so take advantage of that. That is going to be the very best thing that you bring home from here, is that invitation and that follow-up assistance with one of the foresters. The Conservation District also does this. They have fewer foresters, but they also provide technical assistance, and both of them at times provide some financial assistance, or at least they have awareness of different programs that are out there, because almost always there's some sort of a program that comes up. Typically it's a federal program that makes some sort of assistance for buying seedlings or getting what they call sanitation for your land. It's the cleanup. Some of that stuff gets funded. You could go back one and just, if you haven't written down my telephone number or my email, this is what I do as a day job. And so I teach class you, and I'm your state extension forester. So I'm a very, very good conduit to all these different guys, the consulting foresters, the DNR guys, the conservation districts, the federal programs. I kind of know what each of those guys is doing, and I can help save you some time and give you some really good advice. Okay, we don't go out and do one-on-one types of walk in the woods. We don't give money. I mean, you guys know WSU. We take money. You know. But we have a football team too. So go ahead and flip to the next one. The other resource I want to point out is this book that comes out of the University of Idaho called After the Burn. So you have access to the internet, write down those 4 words, After the Burn, Idaho, and this book will pop up and you can download it, and it will help you to understand the probability of whether a tree is going to die. And it'll walk you through the steps on how you can inspect your tree to figure out, is this a good choice to leave it here for the year? Do I want to risk it? I tend to bet on the side of trees. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So basically, you know, I prepared for 3 questions. Will my trees, are they going to die from these injuries? Am I going to have some bark beetles? And how long do I have to sell burnt black logs? Next slide. You've heard the term crown scorch today. This is what we're talking about right here. So the green part of the tree, how much of it got burned? And a lot of times it wasn't the burning, the flame, but it's really just the hot gases that has either dried it out or what's called consumed it. Either way, it all kind of looks the same. But depending on the species, depending on how big it is, how old it is, how much fuel was there, how densely your stand was stocked, that all that stuff kind of weighs into one thing. Go ahead, next one. It weighs into kind of an equation. So that big tree on the left, go back, please. go back one. So the big tree on the left, it's 20 inches in diameter. That's what the DBH stands for. And so it's 20 inches in diameter, and about 40% of that tree, it has been burned. Okay, you can go ahead and go for it. So you go over to this, you get your little book, you go to the 20 inches in diameter, you go to 40% has burned, and go down to so you see 10%. So go ahead and go back. So there's a 10% is going to die. Okay? Pretty simple way to assess your tree health. And there's foresters that are available for you to come out and help you learn how to do that. Okay? So you don't have to do this on your own. And if you want to call me and talk to me about it, we can. Go ahead forward. Go forward. Forward. Yeah, we've talked about burning roots. Go ahead forward. Thicker barked trees survive fires better than thin bark trees. Trees that are worse health don't survive as well as trees that were healthier. Bill talked about the buds, inspecting the buds on the end of your trees. Douglas fir have little bitty buds and they don't have a lot of protection. They tend to die. Whereas ponderosa pine have big fat buds about the size of your thumb knuckle. And those tend to survive if they didn't get heated too much. So that's some of the other indicators that you could look for, and you can inspect this with a pocket knife. Or that was a really good idea that Randy had. I sharpened in a piece of conduit, pounded into the bark of the tree right down above the root collar. So the bark it comes right out of the ground. Pop a little hole in there and just pull it out and look and see if that looks black and kind of styrofoam. It's dead. That little single layer of cells right underneath the bark, it's called the cambium. It's where all the sugars are transported right through that zone. That's what the bark beetles are trying to eat, is that stuff. If it's white and sticky, it's probably alive at that point in the tree, which is a good thing. Go ahead, next slide. So some of the things to look for, this is called needle set. You've got it on some of your trees. They all kind of blew the direction that the fire went. You can treat that as something that's been fully consumed or something that's dead. So it's not going to come back. Even though the needles look kind of grayish brown, they're not going to turn green in the spring. Go ahead, Gareth. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. We already talked about that. Go ahead. We talked about buds. Covering a lot of ground here. This is a fire ecology where you guys are at. These forests have traditionally burned at a fairly frequent rate, like every 5, 10, 15 years, until we got really good at keeping the fires out. And that's why they get uncharacteristically hot now. But they've developed over millions of years genetic traits to be able to survive these kinds of fires. And one of them is this thing called serotiny. And they have these cones that'll hold their cones and hold their seeds in there until they get a little bit of fire. And actually that fire clears the forest floor, cones open up and they spit out a bunch of seeds. And that's how the baby trees regenerate in nature on their own until they get about 4 or 5 feet tall. In 4 or 5 years, another fire comes through. That doesn't kill them all, but it killed a lot of them. And that's kind of how nature worked. But the point is that these things are made to regenerate on their own without a lot of artificial planting. But you may have gotten really hot and you may not have any seed trees. So you may need to reach out to some of these resources to get seedlings, and there's help for that. You're going to have different expectations for wildlife, things that you have seen year after year, season after season. Things are going to change. For better or for worse. So just prepare yourself for that. There's a wildlife biologist for the DNR that will come out there and walk you around in your woods with you and help you understand what to expect from wildlife. All this stuff, you're already paying for it. So go ahead and use those services. You don't have to pay for this service. These aren't private consulting foresters. If you want real personalized one-on-one timber sale advice, you'll want to hire a consulting forester because they can provide that type of level of attention, and they have expertise because they sell logs as a day job. They know who's buying the logs. They know They have a little bit of negotiation power because they sell so much, work with all the different log buyers. Rick, you're gonna talk a little bit? Okay. So work with all the different mills and they can help you with that. There was a book in the back called Managing Your Timber Sale. It's one of the, and that will help you understand what goes into timber harvest. It's one of the more complicated things you'll ever do. So if you're harvesting more than say 5 acres, I even hired a consulting forester last summer when I put up the timber set. I set up the timber set, but I hired somebody that works with loggers and that merchandises logs. And they helped me. In fact, they paid for their costs just because of one sort of logs that's called the sort. I sold some house logs to Montana. And that paid for the consulting forester's job for me. And I've seen this time and time again. So I highly recommend that you work with a consulting forester, ask for references and check them. Next slide. And then I guess I'm gonna wrap up right here, because I don't think water is a huge issue, but you can expect some short duration runoff. So whether it's going to make impacts on your roads with culverts and crossings, that's something that's to be expected. So debris flows of wood and mud, rocks can really cause a problem if you have any sort of slope. So just be aware of those types of road maintenance types of considerations. And Small Forest Landowner Office, Todd and his group are really good at helping you with all that stuff. Okay, so there's tons of help out there. Questions? You got my telephone number, and I'll hang around for as long as anybody wants to talk afterwards. And my brother's here. Rick, raise your hand in the back. Yeah, I want to point that out. Ran into him in the grocery store. We live across the state, different sides of the state. Run into him and Harvest Foods. And he was coming to this meeting. He told me if I had known that I was coming to listen to you, I wouldn't have come. He's got a student or two back there with him. He's the ag teacher in Reardon.
Thank you, Andy. That's wonderful. Andy is a great partner. We sponsor a lot of classes together and helping landowners be successful. We do have one question here in the yellow shirt there.
First of all, you've been talking about forestry and everything else. I live on Silver Lake. A lot of my people here live on Silver Lake. We own lots, not acreage. And there's several questions that we have. First of all, when they cut down the trees, I found out Monday, there are 2 ways. One, they will cut down right to the base. If we want to do the, what do they call it, chippy inside the trunk or whatever, the root. Otherwise, they put it up higher so you pull it out with a truck or whatever. First of all, on Silver Lake, we have a lot of shale, a lot of rocks, and a lot of the trees are right on the lake. So what are we supposed to do? How is our way of deciding which we want? To be able to drill it and kill the root structure or pull it out? That's one question. The next question is, I have lots and lots of cedars come up through the years. I've been there over 20 years. I have pulled out because I had some of my trees were like not even 6 inches tall when I got there. Now they were real big. But shouldn't I expect the seedlings to come back then too? And also a vista, we went out to Sunday after fire and they were out there with a tree smoldering, cutting those down, putting up poles for everybody that was around there to have electricity. And I admired those people then.
Right. I appreciate that. I work with the line crews a lot on fires, and those guys are amazing how fast they get in there. And I with you 100%. Our utility crews are amazing. So versus stump grinding or pulling the stump, I think that was what you're thinking and talking about. And that's going to depend on the situation. The disturbance from pulling the stump, especially if you're near a water source, is probably going to create potentially a problem with sediment entering into the water. So to protect the resource, probably cutting it off low is probably your better bet versus pulling it if you're talking resource protection around water. Your second question was, I'm sorry,
I've had lots of.
oh, the baby trees. So if you have trees that survive, that still have green, like Andy showed the picture of the tree here. If there's green, you will have the seedlings. If there's no green left on them, then you won't.
How can you tell? Because I mean, the ground, the trees have lots of seeds. Even though the ground is burnt, won't we have some more seeds come up?
Maybe, but that probably could. Am I right, Phil? I'm looking.
Depends on how hot
Yeah, it depends on
how hot the fire was. If there was a lot of fuel there was a lot of fuel there anyways. If there was a lot of trees, a lot of material, woody material, it could have killed it. Okay, and in which case you might need to get underneath what's called a hydrophobic layer. You might need to get down and find some mineral soil and actually drop a seedling down in there. And you'll probably find some seedlings around your place that you can go over and dig it up and put it in there. So you'll probably find some, but there's probably some places where there's nothing's gonna grow there for a little bit, if it got that hot, okay? I wanted to make one more point about bark beetles. I kind of cut myself short, but what I wanted to point out, I guess, with bark beetles is that towards the end of the season right now, so bark beetles start flying in the early spring and they kind of wrap things up right about now. Actually, about 2 or 4 weeks ago, some of the bark beetles that last in the second or even a third generation are kind of wrapping things up right now. That said, there are a couple of bark beetles that have been observed. They're generally not the tree killers. They're not. There's about 6 bark beetles that impact trees, and about 3 of those will kill trees. The other 3, yeah, they booger up underneath the bark. They'll bore a hole into your 2x4. They'll make a hole in your tree, but they don't generally kill the trees. In fact, the borers don't even go into the trees until they're already dead. But the point I wanted to make was that the picture of that tree that looked kind of borderline, we were calling it the 40%er. Those are the ones you're going to want to pay attention to for bark beetles. Okay, those are the ones that have had their bigger impacted by the fire. If they're in better shape than that, they can probably defend themselves, because bark beetles are tiny little organisms about the size of a grade of rice. Okay, and unless it's an epidemic level of bark beetles, usually trees can persevere through that stuff. But a tree that's been impacted by fire or drought or a combination of these things, those are the ones that you're going to want to pay attention to. And the DNR foresters can come out there and help you assess which ones those are going to be. And if they're black or nearly dead, I'm very sorry, they're probably write-offs.
All right, thank you, Andy. All right, with that, again, trying to honor your time there, we're going to talk very quickly about service programs. I'm going to bring in Jamie Rohrbach. She's your service for this area. Jamie is a forester. She's been with the DNR, and she's going to talk to you very briefly about what we can do to help you out there post-fire.
So yeah, first off, I'm the service forester that everybody has been alluding to in this area. I cover not only southern Spokane County, but also over Four Mounds area and out to Lincoln County. So quite a big area. My normal job has to do with setting up cost shares for people to thin out their forest and incentive program. But now we're taking on the post-fire recovery program. And there's a couple of things that we can offer landowners for that. So before I get into anything, because I know this is going to come up, I am the person that when you Google, find your forester, Washington State DNR, that's my name, my number that comes up. My name and number is Jamie Rohrbach. It's 509-818-4485. So I am that person that will come out and walk your land with you, answer all your forestry related questions, except for regulations. If you want to remove timber or cut timber for logging and those things, then I will give you probably more of a regulation side of things to answer those questions. So for our post-fire recovery program that we have just started this year, we're trying to ramp it up as fast as we can, but be patient with us. It's in the works, it's evolving as we go. But really, we're trying to, we have a finite amount of money in this pool, and what we are doing is taking people's applications, reviewing those and trying to identify the ones that have critical need. Things like sediment delivery is a big one. We are looking at doing possibly beaver dam analogs to reduce the rate of flows and things like that, down woody debris in places and things. The other one is grass seed for erosion. So we currently have grass seed that we can offer landowners for both erosion and weed control. Right now, we are limited to 20 pounds per landowner. There is a form out on the table you can fill out and tonight and leave it with me and get on the list. We will be getting another load of and shipment in of grass seed, and then I can contact you and deliver that to you. The other thing that we are looking at is possibly fence repair. This isn't just fence repair to keep cattle in, it's more to keep cattle and different things out of critical areas, like some of the wetland areas that are all over out there that we want to protect and give them a chance to recover. Road repair, once again, sediment control issues, stream or the road banks and things. We're looking at providing grass seed for that type of activity. If you have pretty flat ground out here versus other areas like the Oregon Road fire, you probably won't have much for needing to put in rolling dips and things on people's roads and things to get the water to flow off the roads, but that is another thing that we're looking at doing. We went over grass seeding, and then the other one is native plant restoration. So right now we are looking at and hopefully are getting in the works to put up by spring of 2025, we hope to be handing out ponderosa pine seedlings to people. Once again, if you're interested in that, fill out that paperwork. We'll get it on a spreadsheet, we'll get your name and hopefully contact you within a couple years to get some seedlings to you.
Very good, Jamie. Well said. Everything that we're doing is tied back to resource protection, protecting resources, whether it's water, your forests, your roads, those types of things. So again, Jamie will be around here a little bit afterwards. Do we have anybody from NRCS here tonight? There we go. There. NRCS is also Natural Resource Conservation Service. They're also a service that's here to help you as private landowners.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm actually one from the Natural Resource Conservation Service here. Partner here, Ryan, is from the Farm Services Agency. So for those two acronyms you see on the agenda there, that's kind of what we represent. The federal side, been a little ill lately, so try to keep from passing germs. But what we're looking at in our primary program here, you'll see on the handout out there, it has to do with the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. I think I've recognized a face or two here that may have participated in the program one way or another for ranching processes or fences or cropland kinds of things. So it's an all-inclusive type program. We're talking forestry matters tonight. I'm encouraged by the words by others and some of our key partners here talking about the long term. Right here, right now, things are pretty grim, that's for sure. The passage of time, I think that this program, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, EQIP, for some of you who maybe want to jump through some of the federal hoops and get into a contract, it might serve you very well. But you sure want to weigh the time and the paperwork and things like that. The handouts there do offer a set of questions. You might see what you may qualify for under that. And that's the reality is, I think, and Jamie explained it real well, seedlings being available in 2025. The reality is under EQIP for forestry renewal, replanting kinds of things, at least, we'd probably be looking at 2025. For 2024 funds, you compete for a contract, we set it up, and then a few of the federal hoops to jump through, like maybe cultural resources and environmental things that always come with the federal, side of it. 2025 would be the planting season we probably look at. So time has to be weighed in this whole, come pretty immediately with that. On the other hand, I talked to my partner here, Passover partner, Ryan, about the emergency conservation program, and maybe other things he may have in the pocketbook.
So I'm Ryan Lenners. I'm the county executive director here in Spokane County for the Farm Service Agency. We have multiple programs. I'm going to give you a slight overview, and that I'm going to direct you towards resources, because you'll need to, every situation is going to be different. So it'd be better for you to call us. Our phone number is 509 I'm new. 924-7350. So again, 924-7350. So if you are a landowner that lost any, like if you lost feed, your hay burned up, or you lost grazing notices, the grazing land was burnt up, so you lost that feed. We have programs that can help you there. If you lost any kind of fencing that holds in livestock. So if you have, grazing lands, you're the landowner, you rent it out and you lost fence, that's something you'd want to come to me about. The best, if you saw the QR codes, which are those funny looking codes out on the walls up there, there's one over on this side and one over here by the map. Just scan that, that'll take you directly to the questionnaire. You'll just answer some questions, and then at the bottom, eligible for these programs, and then it will direct you to contact us at that phone number I gave you. You can also, if you don't have the QR code or you don't have a smartphone, you can go to farmers.gov, and just on their main page there, you just kind of scroll down and there's a thing called the fire, exactly what it says back there, FSA Disaster Assistance Tool. So you just click that, it'll give you that same questionnaire. The programs, there's 4 different programs, but each one is very different. And you may be a part of this program and a part of this program. So if you were affected, just give us a call. We can always talk to you, and my staff will be able to walk you through the different programs that you may qualify for. And that's pretty much everything I got for you.
Every project can be based on a site visit, so it's not just some mapping or a computer GIS thing. Qualified specialists will be out to look at it, and even in the emergency conservation program they run, our specialists would probably be out and look at the land with you. So it's going to be based on your goals, your objectives. You're the decision maker. That's the great thing, I guess, about this program versus some others. But you would then be in the driver's seat as far as making decisions about what's going to happen out there.
Okay, great. And the folks will be here afterwards. We're running just slightly behind here, trying to keep us on time. Do we have anybody? Oh, we got Farm Service. We do have Team Rubicon. Did you want to have this a second, CJ? Okay. So there is help if you need some help cleaning up. Team Rubicon is a resource that you may want to make contact with CJ afterwards. CJ with Team Rubicon.
Thank you. I am giving you the quiz at the end of this. I just want you to be prepared. I'm going to ask you to see what you know about weeds and bark beetles and things like that. So that's my job, is to make sure you're all awake and paying attention to the whole. No, obviously not. So who has heard of Team Rubicon? Anybody here? Yay, great. So Team Rubicon is a veteran-led volunteer organization. What's that?
It helps a lot.
I've always wanted to be Taylor Swift, but I don't know that I'm gonna make it. All right, so we are a veteran-led, not-for-profit. And our job is to respond to disasters, and you have had a disaster, and I don't need to tell you that. We will be here Monday and Tuesday assessing people's properties. We are specifically looking to work for people who can't take care of this themselves. We are looking for the elderly. We are looking for the veterans. We are looking for people who can't just call their insurance company and say, take care of this. We are involved in disasters around the world, and I'm a little late because we're really busy right now. In Morocco, in the Southeast with hurricanes, in Maui are places that we are. And for Spokane. So this is my job, and we intend to have people on the ground, not next week, So you can look for some help. This again is free of charge. We cut our teeth in Malden when they had the fires. And we have been going back to Malden all these years. Because Malden still has dead standing ponderosas, which are dangerous and will come down in the wind. So it's likely we would do the same thing here and come back for years. And just, we practice in Malden, we do teaching in Malden, and we would do the same thing here. So we are looking forward to helping out. Again, we are free. Somebody asked the question about people cut logs into firewood size, and then they just leave them. We will do that same darn thing. But if you put a card up at the Veterans Hospital and say free firewood, you pick it up, it will all be gone. Because it's all firewood size. And we've done that in other places and it's just gone. So it won't be sitting around your property. We are in consultation with somebody to help us get a chipper, because leaving you debris piles is no favor. So we would chip things, rake it out so you don't have a big pile of chips, and take care of your dead wood. So that's our job. Thank you.
Thank you, CJ. Again, CJ will be here afterwards. No, she has cards. She's CJ afterwards.
Yeah.
All right, Spokane Conservation District, did you want to have a minute?
No, we're good.
We're good? Okay, for the sake of time. Did we have anybody for talk about DNR leases? I have it on an agenda item. I'm not sure if we had anybody talk about leases. Okay. I don't think that person showed up. So with that, I'd like to do a quick introduction, have our log buyer from Boise Cascade come up here and introduce himself. And also the consulting foresters that haven't been up already, just like Randy and Bill and Phil have already been up. But those folks that are in the audience that would like to put a name out there and a face, we're inclusive here. We want you to be able to connect with people that can help you. So here we go. Great.
Great. Good evening. My name's Rick Hansen. I'm from Boise Cascade. I am a log buyer up out of Kettle Falls. We purchased ponderosa pine, which is what all of your stands are, is ponderosa pine. However, the task is to get it up to us because we buy the wood delivered to the mill. So we do have some resources for you. We have contacts for loggers, which we can give to you and get that set up. Part of the process is you're gonna have to have a permit for me to be able to buy it. That is the law. I don't have any choice unless you meet those conditions of 2 acres or less, or it's a hazard job. 150 feet of your house, I can purchase those, but I have to verify. Ponderosa pine, what you're basically looking at, folks, is you're gonna bring a logger in to do that. It's gonna cost you the value of the pine just to get it cleaned up and get it out of there. A logger does not do landscaping. He piles the brush in the pile with a cat. You still have limbs around. You're not looking at a park, so, and you have a piece of equipment that's running around on your property. So be prepared for that, if you decide to go that route. One of the other things I heard, and I don't know if there's more confusion on that, if you do not sell your wood, you are not obligated to replant. That's basically what it is. If you create a commercial event by selling your wood and you're more than 2 acres, you are gonna have to replant. If you don't, the county of Spokane will change your property from timber tax into the value that your house sits on. That 1 acre is probably valued at $10,000 an acre. Your whole property will go that route. That is what we're talking about. So I understood some of this over here, but you will not get out of that, I guarantee it. What is going on with pine? There's a lot of pine in this country. There's only 4 facilities that handle pine. There is too much pine. We cannot swallow it all. Boise Cascade is prepared to take the 12-inch plus logs. You have Idaho Forest Group over out of Laclede. You have Bennett Lumber down out of Princeton, and then Boggin Brothers does handle some pine over out of us. Those are the only facilities you have right now. Currently, we have a lot of fiber floating around. The fiber facilities have been closing down. Again, it's all about competition and infrastructure. There used to be a mill on every single corner. That does not exist anymore. The other issue you have is you are 100 miles from every single mill. You are a long way away. Has anyone seen the fuel prices? That is costing a fortune, something that we didn't foresee, but it's costing just about as much to haul it as it is to log it. The world has changed. So if you have any questions, I left some cards on the back. I will help facilitate whatever I can do for that. Typically what we'll do is get you in with a logger, and the logger will take ownership of the logs. He will do a log marketing agreement probably. You will basically give him the value of the logs to harvest the logs and deliver it to the mills. That is where pine is at this day and age, because the pine mills have gone away. Very few of them left in the country. We just happen to be one, and you're fortunate to have it on this side. So do I have any questions?
Got a question there, got.
What is the minimum diameter you're looking for, and what's the length you're looking for?
So Boise Cascade, we are gonna buy the large logs that go up to our Kettle Falls mill. The top diameter inside the bark has to be 12 inches. Technically, that's 11.6 inches. Don't push that limit, because you're having a scaler look at it. He looks at 1,000 logs a day. You want to push that limit, it never works out. That's what I can say. Keep it at 12, a solid 12 inches. The other thing is, the shortest log we handle is 12'6". I don't want a lot of 12'6". They're a pain in the backside to handle. We handle it with a piece of equipment that picks up 50 tons. And so trying to handle a 12-foot log, those things are squirting everywhere. We've seen a lot of damage. I heard some folks talk about bringing it up on their pickups, on their beds. Doesn't work for us. We have bought too many trailers, because you take a piece of equipment that's as tall as this roof and as long as this room, and the first thing you do is you drop a log on their trailer. What do you think you're going to say to me? You're buying me a new trailer. And we have done that. So we no longer accept logs from on trailers. They have to come in on a logging truck. There was some talk about getting groups together, all fine and dandy. You still have to transfer the ownership of your trees to that person. When we buy them, the logger, whoever has it, has to have a log marketing agreement that says, I'm giving this real property away to you in consideration for whatever you sign up, whatever you agree to with them. Trees are real property. It's a taxable event. You're not going to get hit by that more than likely because of the salvage value. But you will have to report it to Department of Revenue. So, and there are a lot of people to help you get on through that, and I can talk to you about it, but I cannot do that for you. Yes.
What's the max length?
You want to cut a 33 footer, and I suggest you cut as many 33 footers as you can. But our preferred lengths are 33 feet. That includes trim. That's a 32-foot log with a 1-foot trim. That's just in case you don't cut it straight on the end. We have 6 inches on every segment to square that up and get the board square. And so we use a Scribner decimal C system. We pay by the 1,000 board feet. What's a board foot? 1 inch thick, 12 inches by 12 inches, 144 cubic inches. That is a board foot. There are books on this, been going on for 200 years. And so it's just a denomination, and we pay based on that. It's just like anything else. Grain comes in bushels, steel comes in tons. It's just a conversion is all it is.
Yes, I've got a couple of trees that are 40 inch DBH, I know some of the mills in the past years have been taking big stuff.
Good question. We run a double cut, conventional head rig. I can handle whatever you send to me that's left. We've already cut all the big 6-footers out. I can handle a 5-footer. I take a chainsaw to them and I cut them in half.
Sure.
Is how we get them onto the head rig.
And I've been told from our, I don't really buy it, but that, you've got approximately 30 days from the time of fire before they start getting blued from the pine bark.
Good question. Blued timber pays $0 at any of the mills.
Yeah.
The reason for that is we all love that blued pine in our house. You don't build a house with all blued pine. There is not that much demand. You might put it on a roof or on a ceiling. You might put it on a wall. If you have a log cabin, the whole thing could be blued pine. There's not that much call for that. Our problem is Boise Cascade cuts for Geldwins, wood grain, and some of those folks. We're making high end, what they call shop. They call it 4-quarter, 5-quarter. 4-quarter is a solid inch. 5-quarter is 1.25 inches. It can be anywhere from 8 inches wide to 16 inches wide. It is sent to those guys. They remill it to make your door jambs. They cut out all the knots. That's what Boise does. And we also have a short program. Most of the wood in Home Depot is Boise Cascade pine. You will not very often will you find anybody else's. That's a short wood program. That's your 1x4s, 1x6s, 1x8s and 10s.
Okay, but approximately how long do I have from the fire before they blew?
So if we don't get any more rain, you could have 2 months. If we get any more rain, you might only have 2 weeks. It is very weather dependent. This is something you need to, as soon as you can get your permits in, get it permitted, and let's get some loggers down here. And they want to go to work on that right away. It's at this time of year, as it gets cooler, we have more and more life in the wood. But I want to tell you that on Memorial Day, we had a rain. You guys had that rain. I had decks that were cut, and within a week and a half, they turned blue. It got hot, and we had moisture and heat just facilitates the spore that creates blue, and it took off, and there's a lot of that going on. Burnt wood doesn't have a lot of life. One exception, sometimes it burns so doggone hot that it will crystallize the outside and there's more life. Don't take that to the bank.
Okay. Up here, and Rick will be around for a little bit.
Yeah, I'll stay until people stop asking questions.
And do I have any consultants that would like to introduce themselves that haven't already been introduced? Any consultants out there? Okay, got a consultant back here in the back. Just real quick, any consultants come on down? Just want to give everybody a chance to put a name with a face. Thank you.
Hey y'all, my name's Matt. I'm with Dirtworks. I've seen a lot. Oh, thank you. I've seen a lot of you guys' properties that have real short stands, small trees that the loggers aren't interested in. One thing you can do is you can rent a wood chipper and chip that yourself. I know it's gonna be tedious to do. Another thing you can do is look into mastication companies. DNR does have a list they could probably offer you. Jamie has a list with a bunch of us on there. That's just an option for you guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. By the way, Matt did a fantastic job on the fire line.
Okay, with that, we're gonna wrap it up so folks can meet with these, meet in the back and be around the tables, grab some of the literature. Do apologize for not getting to all the questions, but hopefully you can meet with some of the forces afterwards. Thank you, everybody. Oh, never mind, hold on.
I just want to make one quick announcement, and that is, we are standing up a long-term recovery group. So all these folks that were here tonight, and those that were here last week, those that we're going to be bringing in the next 2 weeks, we're trying to coordinate those for a long-term recovery group with the county, the Oregon Fire, and the Gray Road Fire. continue to come to the meetings, look at our website, we'll be pushing that notice out to you. So we've already talked with CJ and some of those Sawyers and, you know, coordinating some of those, timber removal things. And so just stay tuned to the city's website. We'll try to get that to you and work with these folks because that's who we'll be bringing together. But I want to thank everyone for coming. Have a good one.